Meet the RN2000A, a next-generation network hi-fi receiver that's compatible with lossless and high-resolution music sources. Equipped with a toroidal transformer, ESS Sabre Ultra DAC, mechanical grounding concepts, floating and balanced power amplifier with symmetrical construction, music cast which allows you to easily connect to your favorite music services, built-in USB DAC which supports DSD 11.2 MHz native playback and 384 kHz playback. No, we're not done. HDMI ARC, treble and bass equalization controls, gorgeous level meters, in-house design speaker terminals cut from pure brass for a secure speaker connection, and last, YPOW, reflected sound control and precision EQ that helps provide an ideal listening environment regardless of what kind of wacky tobacco room that you happen to be sitting in right now. So here's the question that I know that you were about to ask. Ron, is this it? Have we finally found it? Is this the only thing that we really need? And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that's exactly what we're going to find out. Before we dive in, this video is being sponsored by Safe and Sound, and while they are not responsible for sending me this amplifier, they do carry a huge selection of Yamaha products, including the 2000A. Not only that, they also carry a ton of great speakers, DACs, turntables, and home theater products that are certainly worth checking out as well. With lifetime, yes, that is right, lifetime technical support, flexible payment options, and a large selection of audiophile goodies to choose from, Safe and Sound will be thrilled to get you up and running in a quick hurry. All the links that you need are down below, and please do tell them that Ron sent you. They are awesome to work with and will get you rocking out in no time. It seems to me that EQ, or an equalizer, is one of those things that's hit or miss with a lot of audiophiles. Yes, it was very popular in the late 70s and definitely in the 80s, but over time, EQ has been, I don't know, sort of cast away as the demon stepchild for a lot of audiophiles. While I am pretty neutral about using EQ in a hi-fi system, I know that a lot of you guys might be curious about what happens as you either increase or decrease the bass and treble knobs on this silver-faced beauty. So let's dive in and check that out. So in this screenshot, we can see the in-room response of the NS2000As in green. The speakers are 8 feet into the room, which is one reason that we see very little to no bass output below 50 Hertz. I know for a fact that if I didn't mention that up front, I was gonna be spending the next 3 hours in the comments section, and ain't nobody got time for that. Anyhow, in green, we have our in-room response from the listening position. Turning the treble knob approximately halfway up, we get our new response, which is yellow. Turning the knob all the way up, we get our response in orange. Now, going the opposite direction, again, we have our reference in green, yellow with the knob halfway down, and orange with the knob all the way down. Taking a look at the bass control, once again, we see our reference in green as yellow is showing the bass knob turned up 50% and orange is showing it at 100%. Going in the opposite direction, just as we did before, once again, green is showing our reference, yellow at 50% down, and orange at 100% down. So, the purpose of showing this is to help you understand how the EQ is going to affect the overall tone of the amp, and also illustrate that this particular EQ circuit is not surgical. That is to say, if there is a particular spot or area within the bandwidth that you either want to cut or boost, this circuit will not do that. From what it appears, this is working more like a really wide Q equalizer, or sort of working kind of like a shelf EQ, where a large chunk of the bandwidth is either cut or boosted. Yamaha offers an app called Music Cast. Like most hi-fi apps these days, you can of course use this as your main listening hub and manage all of your music services. I used Qobuz and Tidal Connect with the Music Cast app, and with this being my very first time using Tidal Connect, I was not a fan. Obviously, this is not Yamaha's fault, but MusicCast isn't going to handle the title library in its own native interface, and instead, you're bounced back and forth between the two apps, which for me, got a little bit annoying. Qobuz, on the other hand, works as expected, and it was very easy to find all of my stuff and get used to the MusicCast interface, so no issues there. Also, there are some nuggets and reasons to use the MusicCast app, especially if you grow fond of YPOW, as you can quickly enable it, disable it, change some settings, and even iron out channel imbalance, phase issues, and even subwoofer integration as well. All right. Let's make this review a little bit more interactive. So let's take advantage of sound clips and not only talk about YPOW, but also let you hear the results as we dive in. The RN2000A comes with this microphone, which when plugged into the front of this amplifier, it is smart enough to know what you are trying to do, and within seconds, the measurement process starts. And just like that, we are done. Now, let's mic up these speakers, play some tracks, and hear what's going on with YPOW.
Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Oh, here the ocean is near, where you dug a hole and buried my fear. Oh, here the ocean is near, where you dug a hole and buried my fear. We got your soul. Hunting alone. We got your soul. Hunting alone.
So, keeping in mind the million variables that are completely out of my control, or to be blunt, not having a dang clue what the heck you are playing this back on, I'm just going to tell you what I hear not only in these clips using the software, but also what I'm hearing in the room. While it's certainly possible that some adjustments are happening throughout the entire bandwidth, most of the changes that I hear are in lower frequencies, and that is exactly what I would hope to hear in any kind of a room correction software. Upper bass, mid bass, and lower mid range all sounds to me like it's less forward or leading the charge. Any mid bass bloom, chesty, or heaviness in the lower mid range and vocals all seems to be cleaned up quite a bit. As for mid range, upper mid range, and treble extension, I'm not hearing much of a change in the response at all. Now, to be clear, if this ends up being true, I would consider this a major win for YPOW. When it comes to room correction, I think it's wise for the program to focus a lot of its attention on the lower frequencies and avoid changing or altering anything that's going on up high. This gives me an idea here. Let's fire up my measurement system and take a peek of what we just heard and see if it matches up with the measurements. Taking a look at the left speaker shot from the listening position, which is in green, and the blue showing the corrected response from YPOW. I gotta be honest, I wish I used a different color other than blue. I apologize for that. We can see that what we heard is pretty much what we got. It's also interesting to note that where the speaker drops off and everything below 50 hertz, YPOW did all that it could do to lift some of that lower end content, but it's not performing any kind of a miracle. Either way, starting at 50 hertz, the corrected response is actually higher than the reference, which that part is odd. I don't know what to say. But after that, from 60 hertz all the way out to 200 hertz, a good chunk of the bandwidth has been trimmed. Taking a look at the right speaker, we can see the same trend, and this time our reference in red and corrected response again in blue. It appears to me that this software, YPOW, might be a pretty good option to clean up some lower frequency mud in the music. Next, for those of you who plan to use subwoofers or those of you who are just plain curious, YPOW does indeed offer bass management as part of the calibration process. So in this example, you can just crank up the frequency of the sub amplifier setting, run YPOW, and just like magic, the correction will take care of the rest, and you can even actually fine-tune the bass frequency to your liking within the MusicCast app. So, the RN2000A that just set you back $4,000 does indeed have the ability to play records, but being honest, while trying to be diplomatic, this was the first ball that I think Yamaha dropped with this amplifier. Sadly, this guy only offers moving magnet flexibility for spinning, and I gotta say, this choice seemed haphazard given the price point of the amplifier. I was hoping, wishing, and dreaming about firing up my table, but alas, the lack of moving coil ended up being a massive bummer. For those who are stuck in a similar situation and you want to work around, you would need to rush out and grab yourself a step-up transformer to get this guy to cooperate with your table's cartridge. Another thing that took me by surprise was seeing only one subwoofer output on the back of the amplifier. Yes, you could use the preamp outputs as well, but with that move, my spidey senses tells me that you just tossed all of that fancy pants room correction and bass management right out the window. Either way, seeing that one and only one subwoofer output on the back of this amp had me scratching my head thinking, Yamaha, really? Like, we've been friends for a long time. One subwoofer output? Why, Yamaha? Why? For this review, I leaned on the 2000's abilities to take care of everything upstream. And while I was certainly tempted to run my Maydac through it, I decided to treat this amp the way that I think Yamaha is intending it to be used, which is a one-and-done solution. So, I simply plugged my Ethernet cable into the back of this thing, and just like that, we were off to the races. Did I find myself disappointed in the performance of this built-in DAC or its streaming capabilities? To be honest with you, no. Not at all. But hey, let's talk about that for a minute. First, I did notice right away that this amp does indeed sound a little different from the AS2200 that we've already reviewed. Getting to the point, this amp to me, especially upper mid-range and top end, sounds a little smoother, and it doesn't seem like it's offering the same bite or presence that the 2200 is all about. While I wouldn't stake the claim that this amplifier sounds warm or soft, it doesn't. I do think it is safe to say that it sounds a little more refined than the Yamahas that I have already spent time with. Now, from my perspective, especially as a reviewer, if this is true, and I hope that I'm hearing this right in the new room, I'm still getting used to it, this amp could be a safer bet for a wider audience than the 2200, which, I don't know, might be a little bit too revealing, forward, or true to life with those who are sensitive to listening fatigue. The 2200 doesn't care if you are sensitive to anything at all. You start crying, it'll throw a box of Kleenexes right at you and hit you in the head. Be like, stop crying, you big baby. That's what a cymbal's supposed to sound like. The 2000, it'll relax a little bit. And I think that's a good thing. Maybe. I think it's a good thing. Audiophiles are crazy. Working my way through a number of tracks, I kept noticing how easy this amp was to listen to, and not once did I notice that anything in the pocket of brightness poking out, that is to say, anywhere between, let's say, 1,000 to 3,000 hertz, where most things that are perceived as bright never really seemed to take shape in my listening sessions. Whether I was checking out movie soundtracks, jazz, blues, or rock and roll, the 2000 just played the music back and didn't seem to bug me with any one specific thing calling attention to itself. So, is there a good reason to waste both of our time chatting about the specifics when the tone of this amplifier seems to be pretty much, woo, ruler flat? No, not really. So let's not. While not the end-all, be-all king of throwing a deep and wide soundstage, the 2000 sounds more like a middle-row presentation from the listening position. Where the AS2200 was more exciting and at times a front-row experience, this guy does seem to bring the seat back, and with a slightly more relaxed presentation, things do sound maybe just a little bit wider and deeper. In terms of its holographic ability, it's there. And with speakers properly pulled away from the walls, you won't have any issues with getting a three-dimensional and holographic soundstage at all. So, is the mighty 2000A all that we really need? It's a good question, and while I do think there are more wins than losses with this all-in-one solution for audiophiles and hi-fi enthusiasts, there are just a couple things that I would like to see added in future revisions. Don't get me wrong here. I love the design, the functionality, the ease of use, and the sound of the amplifier. But in the event where we had more flexibility in the EQ circuit, a more robust phono section, and stereo subwoofer outputs, my excitement about this amplifier might have been over the moon. Either way, it's a dang good example of the future potential of amplifiers, and I'll be very anxious to see where things land over the next few years with Yamaha. Now, what about the speakers they sent over to pair up with this bad boy of an amplifier? That's a good question, my friends, and the answers will be waiting for you in the next video.